Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming here and taking your time off of a busy day of work to come here. Also, thanks Pipedrive for the invitation and the opportunity to speak to such a cool crowd. And I hope that you enjoy the presentation like I enjoyed today. So, first of all, who am I? I'm Mário Gonçalves. My name is Mário Gonçalves. I'm a geek since I was born in '85. I'm a web developer since 2007, so it's going to be exactly 12 years now since I've doing web development. I'm a software engineer at Sky, where I do front-end uh, job mostly, and we are building the future of television at Sky. I'm an open source student. I study a master's in open source, and I'm also a front-end teacher, a Magic the Gathering player. But what I really like is four things. I like to learn, think, help, and create. And hopefully, I'll be able to teach you one or thing or two, whatever. We'll see. But before I knew what I did and what I really like to do, this was um, me. Was me before I met Internet Explorer. I was happy. And I also wanted to do teaching, be a poet, a philosopher, a manager, an economist, a psychologist, a diplomat, a marketeer, a blogger. This was all before I actually met software engineering and I fell in love with it. And the amount of power it has to change the world and it has to inspire people all over the world. And that power, the power to change, is exactly what led me to do this presentation and exactly what we'll be discussing today, which is change. How many people of you here work in technology? Okay, good. Pretty much everyone. How many people here have suffered from changings of scope and changings of pretty much requirements and changing of technologies, changing on frameworks? Yeah, basically, we are, as software developers, we are very prone to being affected by change. And we are not only affected by change, we are agents of change. So we can always change for the good and for the better, hopefully. And one of the things that I learned when I was studying psychology is that this is a topic that is very well studied in social sciences. And actually, I had to do a paper once on it, and it was actually a paper about a very known psychologist called Satir. I'm not sure exactly the first name, but Satir studied change and how we react as humans to change. This is on a psychological level, but you can also apply it in a business level and your coding level. And you pretty much can use, if you use it creatively, you can use this model to react to any change. Let's say this model, first of all, is based on 5 factors. First of all, on the first hand, you have the late status quo, which is basically what you have, and you have some foreign element that causes change. And this foreign element is usually met first by resistance. So you first start to resist change, then you dip into chaos, and then something makes you rise up to the challenge and integrate that change back to your life. You can use this model to pretty much justify any change on your life. You can use it. I use it, for instance, to justify my learning curve with TypeScript, for instance. So I really, first of all, I resisted it. I thought, well, I can always go back to JavaScript. And then I dipped into chaos. As you can see, the zigzagging is referring to the production. When you're in a chaos state, there's a lot of things going up and down, and you are questioning, why am I doing this? And why should I change this? And then something clicks, and you start to realize, well, this is actually something good. Or eventually, it can actually be the other way around. Well, this is not good at all, so I'm going to back to my old self. But you're not going back to your old self. You're going back to your old but improved self, because now at least you know that this is not good or this is good. So you go back and you arrive to your new status quo. This is a very interesting topic because you can apply it pretty much in everything. And specifically, you can apply it to use these teachings on building software, building your own greenfield, or building upon the greenfield that was already there, stated a brownfield, and try to change it, try to change what you have. And but when I was studying this model, a few things that came into mind. This model is very, very similar to the model that psychologists also study. And the model is the 5 stages of grief. Probably I'm not very good at explaining it, so I'll just play back a video and hopefully it will play back. If not, we can move on and be happy.
Uh-oh. It's no big deal. It's probably not even quicksand. I'm gonna have a good laugh about this tonight with the guys. Well, this is just perfect. Stupid quicksand, stupid jungle. I want to bite someone in the face. Mother.
It's flipped out, by the way.
Mother. Stop. That stupid jungle. Are you there, God? It's me, Giraffe. Listen, if you would just give me a mulligan on this quicksand thing, I promise, no more peeing on your shorter creatures. What, you get a deal? You know something? I'm cool with this. I bet heaven has all the tender leaves I can eat, and everyone gets their own Slurpee machine. Yeah, take me, sweet death. I await your loving embrace. What? I think I hit the bottom.
Yeah, so that was a quick skit just to show you how change can affect us. And why did I came here to do this? Because if you understand how change works, you can understand how to reproduce it in a better way. And this is one of the reasons why I was presenting this. One of the first things that happens when you try to change, not by something that is outside of you, which you can only react to. When you're trying to innovate, you're trying to yourself be the change. You're trying to push the change forward. And one of the main blockers of pushing the change forward is something that is known as fear. Fear is a very rational response of our body, of our own being, to things that they seem to be a threat. So fear usually has a reaction, which makes you choose two different things, like the matrix. You can either choose one pill and go to the matrix and go deeper into the rabbit hole, or you could just choose the other one and just be as you are. So this reaction is called fight or flight. So whenever you're faced with change, you can either resist the change or you can embrace the change and get it further. And fear is also an acronym that I like to use. You can either forget everything and run, or as we are trying to go forward and with this analysis, you can face everything and rise. So being able to facing everything and rise, and since fear arises from not knowing, the best way to know is to implement the scientific method of getting to know things. And what easier way to just question. First of all, this is a scientific method, and the scientific method usually is comprised by 5 different questions. The first one that you have to ask when you're trying to implement a change and you're trying to do a new rebuilding of software using a different framework, when you're trying to deliver a specific feature to the end user, when you're trying to use software for the good, the first question that you need to do, and this is where a lot of people fail and a lot of software developers do fail, is the ability to discern the why. The why is the motive. Why are you doing this change? Why are you just trying to rewrite a code base from one specific framework to another? Why is that a motivation? I mean, why do you want to do it? I mean, sometimes we want to change the world, but in reality, what the motive is that we only want change to be done. We are bored sometimes. So this is very important for you to decide and for you to discern, because if you do not know the why, you won't get very far. The why, the motive of your change will be able to carry you on through any kind of big change that is going forward. So this is a really, really important key piece. The second part is who. Who are you? I mean, who are you in the process of change? Who are you in the middle of the process? Who are you? What are your tasks? What is the task that you are going to do in the change that's coming? How are you going to make it so that you know who the users are? Who is involved? Is it the business? Is it just something on the code? Is it just the coders, the change that you are doing? Is it just a PR, a simple PR? It's just the coders. It's not. Is it something more visual? Does it involve designers? Is it something more business related? Does it involve the design team as well? Is it something farther more than that into the product? So you need to discern who are the stakeholders on the change that you're trying to do. Sometimes it's just code, pretty much, but not always. The second step is what. What means is a question to allow you to figure out which is the scope of your project. What are you trying to change? Are you trying to change the world? But first, start for yourself. What are you trying to change? Is it a software, a specific change? What is the scope of that? And when? When is the change going to happen? When are you going to develop this change? When is this change supposed to go live? Is it something that is for tomorrow, as usually it is in software development? Or is it something that can be thought of? This adds up to the more questions even further. And where is the change taking place? Not where physically, but where in the environment? Who are your competitors? This framework that you're trying to implement and go forward, what does it differ from any other framework in the market? Where does this change leave the company in? Where does it gain an advantage? So all of these questions is like your friend. On the right, there's Tsubasa, and for people who don't know, it's a very old comics, and Tsubasa was very afraid of the ball because he didn't really like the ball, but then his teacher told him, well, you can trust the ball, he's your friend. The questions is pretty much our friends. We as software developers dribble around with change everywhere and questions. With a lot of the job that we do is related to mitigate unknowns, mitigate change, ask a lot of questions. So questions are your friends. The why, the answer that gives you motive, and if you answer it with honesty, it gives you something more. If you are like a child, and you try always to go deeper, why does this work? Why do I need a change? Why do I need to change the framework? Why do I need even to change at all? You have to question, 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 question. Second stop is the people, and the way that you wield this sword and the sword of this kind of question gives you is by empathy. If you really empathize with your user, with your friends, sometimes you can understand that the change can either be very unrealistic or it can actually help someone you didn't really know. The third question, the scope, is what you're trying to discern when you ask questions of what. And how you use it is with focus. You want to discern the scope so you can focus on really, really, really what matters. The when gives you the timing, and if you use it with persistence, you can deliver change. The where is environment, and you can use it with vision. And how, and the plan and execution, I will go forward with a case study of our own, how we did a change in our project at Stack. So the how is the missing piece, and the how are we going to go forward is by using a plan. This is a picture that I took in Ericeira. Not that I took, but it's a picture of it in Ericeira. Basically, for the ones who do not speak Portuguese, it says when you travel without destination, no wind is favorable. So you need to plan, even if you're agile or waterfall, whatever. You need to plan. You need to plan ahead. And by planning and planning for change, there's actually a model for change, which is a model for Kotter. There's a lot of more of this, but this is just a case study. So Kotter's step model is a 8-step model. So the first step is for you to create a sense of urgency. If you want to really go forward with the big change that you want to do, be it software, be it whatever, first of all, in your organization, you have to create a sense of urgency. You have to create a niche that someone has to scratch. You have to create and be able to make that pitch happen. Once you do, you need to build a guiding coalition, which is basically a set of people that will allow you to keep the change going, because change isn't done by yourself. The third part is to form a strategic initiative. This is like building on the previous topic. So you kind of have to do the initiative to form a strategic goal. Fourth step is to enlist the volunteer army. So if you want to do a big code change, you need to have people to kind of volunteer themselves into, because change is a battle, and battles are only won by volunteers, not force them into. The fifth step is to enable action and have no barriers, which is basically for change to happen in the code or in your life, you need to enable it for it to happen fluidly. So it happens as a part of the process. The sixth step is to generate short-term wins, because the motivation that I was talking to you about, the why, does not last forever. So you need to kind of get a sense of a rush from the small things that you do, and because change takes time. The seventh step is to sustain acceleration. Even if you're not going, go faster, go faster. And lastly but not least, since this is a cycle, it goes back on the first. You need to institute the change. So the change that you actually did, and if it was positive, you need to kind of ensure that for the people that come forward for you, that this change is actually set in stone, and that everyone learns from the change that you did. So I'm going to go forward in a case study with a SkyStore web application. So for the people who don't know, SkyStore is an application for Sky customers, so that they can buy and see movies online, basically. That they can buy the DVD and watch it online. It was developed here in Lisbon, but we inherited a bit of the code from England. It was done a lot of changes, and we decided in a point in our team, we decided to go forward with a change to migrate it from using Angular to React. So this is kind of documenting the thought process behind it. So kind of going meta and going back and using the same questions that I did before. First of all, why? Why did we decide to do this change? First of all, there were mainly three reasons affecting three different stakeholders. The first reason was that it was slowing our process down. So we measured, and we thought that the fact that the code base was so unmanageable made us that we, the web, were slower than any other proposition that was undergoing. So this was the main reason, the main motive, so that we can deliver faster to the customer, so that the customer can see the changes very fast, and that it can have a competitive advantage over the businesses that do work faster. And the second reason was developer satisfaction. We were not happy what we were doing. We were getting demotivated. And lastly, but not least, the last part was that this happened also because we wanted to align with the company's direction of using more React. So this is the why for you. The who is basically a team of 8 developers, roughly, and a very good Scrum Master who enabled the change to happen. The what was exactly what I was expecting. We migrated from Angular to React, and the where is during a transition period between implementing a new store for the German customers. This will come as a forward discussion, but we will see there. The when was exactly the same as the where. It was during the transition period. So how did we do it? So if you go how, we first of all devised a plan to conquer the world. The first step, following the same quarter model, was to create a sense of urgency. So this was done by measuring first and sharing. So we measured the metrics of the how slow we were, and sharing them and creating visibility to the management team. The second step was that we enlisted champions to do a lot of proof and concepts for the ways that we wanted to work and how we wanted to build the future towards to. And the third part, we just split and spike, which is mainly we split our team in different 2 to 3 teams, so that each one would have a spike, or one of them using Angular, the same version, rewriting it just in the way that we knew. The second one was just using React, and the third one was using not React, but a reactive kind of framework. So we kind of divided and conquer in a way that we could spike and see which one is the best approach. So after we spiked, we grouped back and united. So after each spike, we kind of lifted up the pros and cons of each approach, and we decided eventually to go directly to React and migrated directly to React. The fifth step is no barriers. So we had a Boy Scout rule going over, which is basically if you pass through code that you didn't saw fit, or it smelled funny to you, so you had to change it. So this is a Boy Scout rule. Probably some of you guys are aware of this. It's a very nice rule to have in a project, by the way. And the generating short-term wins. This isn't something that we actually did, but it was something that I did. Whenever we deleted old code, I kind of party because it kept me going and going and going. And in the sense that it would sustain the change and grow it rapidly. The seventh point of sustaining acceleration, that we had an internal rivalry to see who was doing more. So this kept us going and going and aiming for more. And lastly but not least, after we finished the project, it was actually so successful that we used it as a base to build the code for the Smart TPs application and the desktop application afterwards. So it served as a reference for the rest of the teams coming forward. This was the plan. However, the execution was a bit different. If you guys want to know, I can discuss it with you a bit further. But how did we do it? So we all had Angular and React side by side, and migrated them very thoroughly over 6 months roughly. So we had Angular doing the router, and we did route by route migration. So whenever we wanted to do a new route using React, we'd add that one to the Angular router, and we had also an integration service, which is basically the bridge service between the past and the future. And this service layer is purely in JavaScript. On the right, you have the sheep of Theseus. It's a very nice write-up and a philosophical concept. We basically migrated it like the sheep of Theseus. And after all of this, one of the things that you want to go and do the change, if you answer all the questions that I posed previously, it will give you enough energy to pitch the idea that you want to do to the change and pitch it to your colleagues. But do not forget that you have to be empathetic and do not just do change for change. You have to do change with meaning and the motive. And this is what usually, at least me, I forgot. Because we are a lot of times lost with the shining and writing. Oh, I wanted to rewrite the code for a new framework. So you need to be careful of the change that you ask, because sometimes you get it. So be careful about what you ask for. Lastly but not least, not all changes are good. Some changes are failures, or as I like to learn to say it, learning experiences. It's important that whenever you fail, you have to learn where you failed before, because if you do eventually fail, you can change again. Reckless once said that the only constant is change. So if you do fail, just change. I mean, it's not that difficult. So wrapping up, first of all, if you want to do a change and do a meaningful change, first of all, you will have to get inspired, get together, because change isn't done by yourself. You have to get a group together, and always keep an open mind. This is a very key piece, because sometimes we're wanting to change, but sometimes the change that we get isn't the same change that we wanted. And this is not bad, this is not good. Sometimes it's the change we need. You have to believe the change. This is all BS, but before you believe, always question and test it first, please. Uh, be empathetic with your users. We always in the technology get lost in the sense that we are doing code, but we are doing code to be read by another developer that is going to be eventually run by some user. So be empathetic and always know that there's more than you, just you. Be positive because change is a difficult process, and be humble as well. Try to learn with your peers. Be patient and be honest. When answering any of the questions, you have to be full honest with yourself because this is very difficult. Because sometimes we are trying to. What I usually say is that if you know the how, but you don't know the why, probably you have not being honest with you. If you want to do and rewrite the code with a different framework, or if you want to do a big change and you know it, you want it, but you don't know why you want it, maybe there's something in it that you should invest into. And lastly but not least, celebrate. If you're doing a change, even if it's just a simple pull request or whatever, just celebrate because you've actually made something different and you've changed. And now you're better. Thank you guys.